Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toku Portal podcast for Kamen Rider Zi-O. I am Vashi V, and joining me today are.
Did I dedicate?
And zero.
Um, we are talking about Kamen Rider Zi-O episode 10. Um, I'm gonna forgo the way that I normally do the podcast and just kind of do a general overview, characters and whatnot, because it's Zi-O. There's really no freaking plot. Um, Overall, this episode we get interaction between Hina and Edgy. Um, and she does have her super strength, so at least they touched on that, I guess. Um, Gage is still pissed off about Sugo joining Dan. Dan's based, Dan's evil shit because it's fucking Dan. So much for character redemption in Xaid. Um, and then Sugo is basically trying to figure out what a Demon King is so that he can be a good Demon King. So I guess the idea from it is the fact that Nobunaga Oda is actually referenced as a Demon King. Mainly because he was, vicious and vile and basically used whatever tactics he needed to succeed. But he was still a good king because if not, people wouldn't have followed him. That's basically what his uncle tells Tsukiyomi, which gives her, I guess, new perspective to keep an eye on Sugo. It's not really well explained too much. They end up fighting Dan and Sugo and Edgy in a brief little fight, and Hina basically uses her super strength to help Edgy fight. Edgy gives Hino the watches, the ride watches, and then they go outside to fight some more. It's basically like what, the first quarter of the episode. So, what are your thoughts so far?
I think it's a bit more than that, but yeah, not a whole
I'm
lot.
trying to be generous.
Yeah, not a whole lot to talk about. Just in general, seeing Hina and AG interacting is always nice, and just AG being such a good person because that's just the way he was even before he became a Kamen Rider, and politics hasn't corrupted him. So yeah, who doesn't love AG? Seriously. um, yeah, that's it for now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, it's not the most amazing episode, but overall, like, probably the best. I mean, arguably the best done episode of this show so far. I mean, that's not a high bar to reach, but um, yeah, like, basically with Edgy, Hina, and like Dan being around, like, the show's actually better. I mean, like Dan, not even that much, but it's like, well, at least like he has something going on, right? Whereas like Edgy and Hina are so like likable. It's so like they have such good chemistry, and they're returning characters, and they're so likable anyway. So it's like it's okay to watch. Plus, it kind of just reminds you of like the good times, like how good of a hero these guys were, because like they were such good human beings to begin with. So it just reminds me of that, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it does kind of bring into question like, why does Edgy have the ride watch? It's like the most annoying thing about this episode is like the Zio gimmick. And it's not even too bad. It's just like, oh right, we have to do this because that's what the show's about. It's like, right, Edgy just gives them the ride watch. Where did they come from? How did he know? Like, aren't you a politician? Like, none of this makes sense. Right, and in the freaking Megazord battle that happens, I was like, okay, I guess we need something going on in this episode because it's the writer show. We can't have, we had to have two fights or some shit. um, which was dumb. But I'm like, all right, they're doing it because they have to, because that's the show's gimmick. But overall, it was a pretty solid episode. Like if this was episode 1 or 2, like this would be great. The problem is it's like episode fucking 10. I'm like, yeah, at least we're finally getting some stuff where characters are acting like characters. Like Gates is like, yeah, I can't trust this guy. Better not become super friendly with this dude, right? Like, and he kind of does his own thing, and like Tsukiyomi finally kind of has like a full purpose, or like rediscovering what her purpose was to begin with. Is like, yeah, I'm gonna be like observe Amazio my own way and see if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and then like freaking Sugo finally gets a goddamn personality where it's like, yeah, I don't fucking like you, Dan. Like I just wanted to see what the hell your deal was, but like I don't like what you're doing. And then like he listens to Edgy and is like, yeah, I kind of like you. And I'm like, that's kind of really generic, but at least like he has motivations, right? Like he has a personality. Like, oh, I like this and not this, right? Um, and it's like, yeah, he kind of actually explores it a little bit, or at least it seems like he does in this episode. So it's like, yeah, we're finally getting some development. It's like it's development that should have been in episode 2, of this show, not like fucking 10 episodes in, but at least it's something. So as far as Zi-O goes, like, yeah, this was a decent episode. The next one also seems interesting. So it's like maybe the show's finally picking up.
Yeah, it felt like that because finally we have one of the former writers just teaching Soga something as a human being instead of just running around like a chicken with its head cut off because they can't turn into writers. So, like this was actually pretty decent. AG's words of wisdom were way more important than the dumb ride watches.
Like for me, like nostalgia wise, this is up there with the Fives episode, and I think this is a little better than the Fives episode because we get characters that, well, yes, they're in different roles than they were in the show. That makes sense. Differences in timelines and all that. So the path they took was different. They still feel like the exact same characters, just in different circumstances. And that, I think that's what I liked about the Fives episode too, having now fully watched Fives, is Takumi and I can't ever remember his name. Kaiza. They still felt like the same characters. With this has a bit more nostalgia in it, in the fact that you get phrases and interactions that remind you of O's, which to me is really all of this show's seems to be all the show's purpose is at the moment, is that and to sell toys. So getting the nostalgia was great. Having Edgy make his comment about all he cares about is whether or not he has pants and money for tomorrow. Great callback. The best one was at the end of the episode, the happy birthday from Waz. The fact that Sugo actually seems to validate his reasonings on why he wants to be king. It's not much. It's very, very slim when you actually, dice it down, because it's literally, because it was, as we knew it, yeah, I want to be king just cuz. Now we know it's deeper than that. He feels it's more his destiny, that he was born to be king. That's great motivation. If it's delved upon rather than just being, yeah, this is just a thing because we need it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, unless they build upon it, it'd be kind of contrived. Because here's the thing: like, we've had shows where we've actually dealt with this. Like, the thing is, like, okay, if you're like so stuck up that you think like you deserve to be king, like we've had characters like we've literally just had Dan. Yeah. Oh no. I was gonna say the destiny thing was Kabuto. So like, yeah, both of his motivations, we've had characters with better things, right? Um, but at least he's going somewhere. Like, okay, fine. We're probably not gonna get the reason why he wants to be king. I've kind of expected that, but like, at least fucking do something, right? Like, at least showing that, like, yeah, he has a style of being king, not just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna figure it out. Like, that's such a shitty way of doing it because like that means like there's no end goal, there's no direction. It's literally whatever the plot says. Whereas here it's like, yeah, no, I don't like your style of doing shit, Dan. Um, I'm gonna do it differently. Um, so that's good. Hopefully, whatever the hell. I mean, the preview looks interesting for next week. So like maybe we'll finally get some real development going on.
I mean, if there's a character to give him development, it would be that character. Um, but yes, as Zero touched on, we ended up with a, for lack of a better term, Megazord battle where the female Timejacker shows up in Kiva's castle with no fucking explanation of where they got
Wait,
that.
what? That's what that
Yes,
was?
that was
Oh,
Kiva's
God.
castle, and
Castle
Fucking
Doran.
I know
God.
the only reason why I know that was
Just
Kiva's castle is because I'm literally watching Kiva now.
nice. But God damn it, man. Stop ruining the castle. I'm
Um,
so sick of like shows just like, oh, the castle showed up. What do we do? We either blow it up or just use it like the shittiest cannon fodder thing. It's
um,
like, don't do that. It's like a sentient being. It's like hundreds of years old. Give it some respect, damn it.
um,
Um, yeah, sorry.
Tsukiyomi shows up and he fights it. The red Taka can watch thing, which I'm just gonna say is their excuse for not having Ankh in the episode. I'm just saying that was their nod for Ankh, seeing as he pointed at the dealt with a Tajador watch. Um, it helped them, directed them what to do, how to use it. So yeah, it turns out the heads can change, and it gives them different powers, which just seemed kind of useless a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much. I
the
was like, what is the point of this? Like, the upgrade does nothing.
the best thing about this, Sugo finally did a rider kick correctly, albeit in a mech. That
That
was
is,
the first rider kick he's done, or I'm sorry, finishing move because I can't call them kicks because he literally, drills somebody. But it's the first one that's correct for him
yeah,
because it's been gaze
that's
up
kind of
until now.
sad.
Like I get the
That
whole
is
we're
kind
gonna
of
figure it out thing, but
yeah.
um,
I mean, like the weirdest thing is like when the like Taka can. Okay, so you think it's for Ankh? I didn't actually even think that, but like that makes a lot more sense. I was actually thinking it's like, okay, so this thing's flying around. For the longest time, I was thinking like, okay, why is like Red Garuda from Wizard flying around in O's episode? And then you said Taka, I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense. But then like the other two show up, and it's like, what is it like a? It's supposed to be a lion, but it's more like a cheetah shows up,
yeah,
right?
uh, it's a
And
cheetah.
then
It's
I was
supposed to be a
like,
lion and then a grasshopper.
yeah, and then I'm like, oh, are we leading up to the Hibiki episode or something? Where it's like, oh, we're actually gonna figure out who the hell's sending this. It's either gonna be like a third writer with like Hibiki's powers, or it's actually gonna lead into Hibiki's things, which would be really cool. Because like Hibiki is one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, we wipe time, but it's like there've been other like Hibiki writers for like hundreds of years. Like there's an entire organization. Like, how does that work? Then again, I guess the show is like totally ignoring actual continuity. It's like, okay, yeah, we got the power, therefore, like their timelines don't exist anymore, which is so shit. But
I
at
think
least it'd
I
be
think
something.
Dan is the closest thing that they've left continuity correct. because they took out the X-Aid thing, but Dan was still Dan. He still worked at his dad's game company, and he was an evil shit dick. Only difference is he didn't infect a child this time.
Fair enough. I mean, like, yeah, that and like Edgy, where it's like Edgy's backstory is basically the same with the whole like
Yes,
Civil
that
War.
same flashback too. I
Yeah, I know,
like
it's
that
like-
touch.
I know, but I'm just thinking, oh, they ripped open the Toei archives to bring us the footage. It's like, yeah, the reason why Edgy's like timeline doesn't change is because we're not gonna fucking reshoot this war scene. So it's like it's protected because it's literally fucking footage. Like it's B-roll, but it's B-roll not from the show. Therefore, it's like it's the perfect memory because it can be altered. Like you can't alter it because Toei is too lazy to spend the money to reshoot this, right?
But
Whereas if it's the show, then you can BS like, oh well, Oz doesn't have his powers, therefore the timeline's different. But it's like, no, this is before he had the thing, so
you can't fuck with it.
You know what the worst part about that is? Like, it doesn't make sense. Because, like, say Edgy wasn't there, right? Okay, there was another O's like 800 years ago. Right. Therefore, the medals would still be around. Therefore, like, if Edgy wasn't there, those two guards who were stealing the shit would have just either tricked another guard or, like, the other guard would have gone with it. Therefore, like, the greed would have been released. So, like, none of this timeline makes sense, but again, it's the same thing of, like, Fives would have still happened, O's would have still happened, Hibiki would still kind of happen, Agito, like, technically, like, removing their main writers does not change the plot.
The one thing I like that they do is they've edited a little bit the fight scenes where they lose their powers, because so far they've all been actual fight scenes in the show. Well, except for Gentaro's, he lost his power afterwards.
Yeah, that was weird, but that doesn't even make sense because, like, whatever. It's like, I guess they were really like, yeah, we can only do like one thing because
like
Forze isn't here, so we're just gonna go double down on the Phi stuff.
Which I was okay with that. With this is like, I'm happy and disappointed with the way they edited it, because the fight scene that they used, Ankh was a heavy visual aspect of that fight, mainly because him and Edgy were basically arguing the entire damn time. Same thing with Kazuri, because Kazuri was there. I'm happy that they didn't show Ankh during the flashback, but I'm also kind of disappointed because I like Ankh. But I think it would have been a waste to show Ankh without actually having Ankh fully in the episode.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if you're not gonna have the characters back, like, as much as I would like to see them in the flashback, it would just then make us want them in like real life, or I mean like modern day. So it's like might as well not even have them at that point.
Having watched Phi's after the Phi's episode, I was disappointed that they used that fight scene that I think her name's Masuri, basically the girl in Phi's.
Mari?
Yeah, Mari. Having her in the scene during the flashback of him losing the powers kind of sucked. Because I was like, looking back on it, I'm like, I really wanted to see her. Granted, at least they explained why she didn't show up. She kind of got killed.
Oh, that's fucked up, man.
Because he lost his power.
But then again, like,
and
I didn't watch that second episode because I didn't have time. But like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Well, it went back to Phi's first full-on fight, his first rider kick, where Mari was trapped in the car.
Yeah, it's true.
He lost his powers before the kick happened, and the monster destroyed the car.
Slammed. Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah,
that sucks.
That was dark. Looking back on it, that was darker than I expected.
Pretty true. Becky, your thoughts on any of this?
Uh, I honestly didn't think the O's armor looked bad. It kind of reminded me of Super Tashador. I liked how he actually said "say yeah" at the end of the rider kick. That was surprising. I mean, complete BS since AG didn't tell him anything, but it was still a fun callback. And they actually brought back the creepy puppet. That's one thing I could have done without. In the flashback showing when Dan got the another O's powers, they just have the creepy doll in the background. That was not good.
I didn't even notice that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, as for like the armored form, like yeah, I like the armored form. I just didn't like the unnecessary like Zord fight that happened. I'm like, all right, are we making like a decent episode of Rider and somehow we crossed over an okay episode of Sentai in the middle of this? Like what the hell is going on to it?
Like I get the aspect of using it because there are writers that have like Castle Doran and stuff like that, and I guess you can count Ed Gimes Watermelon. So having something that can fight against them makes sense, but everything about that just seemed unnecessary in this episode. As I look at it, there was no reason for Castle Doran to show up. I don't care if it was being retardedly piloted. Because as far as I know in Kiva, that's not piloted, it's sentient.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's living. You can't really pilot Castle Doran. Like you could tell it where to go, but you can't actually pilot the damn thing. Like you could pilot like Ixa's mech thing, but not Kiva's Castle Doran.
Um,
Yeah, it's weird.
but yeah, his armor form is really like Decade said to me is really super Tataba. Which I guess if you're gonna give a nod to a movie power up, that'd be one to do because it didn't look horrible. It was really bright, but it wasn't terrible. Um, and having the Seiya was a nice touch, even if it made no sense. Um, and we get Waz saying happy birthday instead of Cake Boss. Because I guess he's too busy making commercials about an ab machine.
I mean, make some money, right? Why not? But yeah, it would have been kind of great to see. Okay, you know what? The really annoying part is like Cake Boss, we know survives. Like he's the guy who goes to like almost to the furthest Rider timeline, like future wise. Like there's like what maybe future drive? No, future drive. Okay, maybe future drive. Probably not. Like future Deno, I think is the furthest future timeline, and then it's like a toss up between like um Aqua and Future Drive, right? In like
Right.
Future Riders. So like Cake Boss would have been perfect, but that's the most annoying thing too with the like future thing. It's like I wish some of the characters would survive. Like I mean, like okay, imagine how if it was like Arrows doing this season where we're getting like flash forwards and seeing like certain characters are there and certain characters are grown up and whatnot. Like how cool would it be to see like okay, it cuts to the future and it's like you have like Aqua, Cake Boss, Blade, new Kiva, new Deno. Um, I'm not sure if Future Drive would be there. Who knows? Like just running around, like that would be awesome. Like Takeru's kid, you know, like all the future kids, like it's never gonna come happen. They're never gonna come back. As soon as like Heisei ends, they're never coming back, right? I kind of just wish like those guys would have a movie. Like, you know what the most annoying thing is? Like, if we get to the Kabuto thing and Zabi doesn't show up, I'm going to kick somebody's ass. Because like Zabi is the one Zector who can show up and anybody can play him and it'll be fine because you can say, well, it's just the new Zabi, right?
Yeah, because that happens
Right?
like
Like
what 6 times during the series.
Or the
not
original
six.
actor could show up because he was just in the Go Launcher movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's
Um,
gold.
that'd be so cool. I mean, he was also Hongo in the like Kamen Rider the first and the next, right?
Not sure about
Um,
that.
yeah, he was also freaking like Tuxedo Mask. No, wait. I'm okay. Maybe he was Mamoru. I don't know. I know he was in live action Sailor Moon also. So I don't remember if he was Tuxedo Mask or not. Yeah, that guy gets around. He's pretty awesome. Um, I mean, yeah, like okay. To be honest, I would rather see Kick Hopper again because I really like that suit. But that already showed up in Decade, and we're pretty much getting like almost no secondary writers. I mean, like freaking Kusaka and Nito showed up, but like it's unlikely that any more of them will.
Like
That'd be cool.
that's one thing that's bothering me, and I understand it comes down to budget, timing, and all of this stuff. Is there are characters that we liked better that we don't get to see, or ones that would make relatively more sense. I guess Beast made more sense this episode than, or in his episode rather than Wizard, because I mean Wizard kind of took off. Um, but like there's characters like this I would have loved to have seen Ankh. They can't tell me he's not available because he was literally just in a movie for Toei because he was in the crossover movie. Um,
I mean, here's my thoughts. Was like maybe you know how like Decade's movie was supposed to be the ending of Decade and kind of really wasn't. Like maybe Heisei Generations Forever, is that what it's called?
yeah.
Yeah. Like is is Zi-O like just straight up leading to that? Is that why like all the writers are losing their powers?
Well,
Is
Zi-O.
because
Well,
it's
that movie's taking place during Zi-O.
yeah, fine, whatever. Like the point is like at some point Zi-O's gonna run into all of them because they're just standing there, like all 19 of them. It says 20, but like that doesn't make any sense. I guess we're counting Gates also. Or it could be like the next guy, but like it kind of defeats the point of calling them Heisei generations if like the new guy shows up. Um, yeah, it's probably because they're counting gates. That's why we're getting up to 20 because there's only 19 Heisei shows. But yeah, if we build up the show and it's like, oh, all the writers are losing their powers because like Zi-O is taking them, and then the movie happens and it's like, oh, Kamen Rider is just a show, nobody believes in it, and all that shit. Man, that would be like kind of the best tie-in, but like I'm think I'm giving that the show way too much credit to be leading up to that. I mean, that movie seems interesting, but it could just be like, yeah, it just happens to line up, and we're just thinking of a better theory than anything the movie and the show, well, more likely the show will do.
For me, I'm thinking it's gonna be like the whole Sango and Yango movies, where it's just like, hey, alternate timeline, which seems to be the case considering the fucking Deno's in it. All of his shit's alternate fucking timeline and universe and shit. Fucking Deno.
I mean, to be fair, it's been really long since Deno showed up in a movie, so I'm like, let's just give the Deno fans something to like, because I mean, like the last time he was in a movie was what, like shit, I can't remember. Like the last thing I can remember anybody from Deno being in was like Kamen Rider 4 movie where like Xeranos was there, but like again, that's not Deno, and also that's not the main movie, so most people wouldn't have seen that. Like Japan wise,
I
considering Deno is like super popular,
Now, are we
right?
referring
Like
to actual regular Deno or new Deno? Because new Deno's been in a more recent movie.
yeah, I mean like the last thing I remember is like Momotaro's being in like the Wizard special at the end of Wizard was like the last time like any of the real cast were in anything. Not just the suits. I mean like either the voices or the actors.
Because
You know.
pretty much everything since then has been new Deno.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like I just wish like we could get like any of the older guys, but like it's unlikely.
so,
Um,
I have to give a slight little shout out. Turns out, Rye is unable to actually make the podcast because he's at work, and I guess he's listening to the podcast. He says it says 20 because it counts Sugo. It's counting this series. This would be the 20th series.
is it? Um, hmm, interesting.
So,
I mean, I guess we can run through it. Yeah, let me count it. You guys keep talking.
um, where did we leave off? Because we kind of touch on everything else too throughout this. Gates ends up taking off, doing his own thing because I guess, like Zero said, that he doesn't want to get too close and have his mission skewed, which is fair because it's that whole I don't want to get too close to you and actually end up liking you and then have to kill you if you turn out to be a shithead. That's fair. As Rai put it to me the other day, he's just a shitty Ren from Ryuki, which
Yeah,
is kind of fair.
yeah. Rye's right. This is actually the 20th show. Holy shit, man! Like, it's so hard to realize that sometimes because we've seen so much.
Like, I'm still
And I
amazed. Like,
haven't
I
seen.
started watching this with Kamen Rider with Decade. Was the first series I watched.
Yeah,
And
I think like the first one I saw was Kiva fully, but Decade was airing around that time.
and I have now watched. I've just started Kiva. I've need to finish Kabuto and I need to finish Agito. So the only two series that I haven't watched have been Hibiki and Kiva, because where I go through Kiva is not accessible.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like I think like that's generally how most writer fans. I mean, I don't know anybody who's seen like all of them, but like even if you watch a lot, like especially even like Heisei Rider, most people miss like one or two at least. Like uh the ones I'm missing are Deno because I can't sit through it, Forze because I refused to watch Kamen Rider in high school, um, Gaim because I fucking quit. Uh, Hibiki near the end, I kind of just gave up. So there's like maybe four, but like yeah, I know kind of Gaim. Like Gaim, I went like a third through. Hibiki, I went like 2/3 through. You know.
For me, like Hibiki was the one that I clocked out on. 'Cause, like, I started watching a couple episodes, and the only thing my brain screaming at me is, "This is not Kamen Rider." Which, as through what Rise told me, is like it wasn't originally supposed to be a Kamen Rider. It was supposed to be a revival of a different show. And Toei just went,
No,
"Fuck it, it's Rider." So it was supposed
no.
to
I
be a
think what happened was Deno was supposed to be Metal Heroes potentially, and
From what Rise,
Hibiki was supposed to be its own thing.
yeah, Hibiki
What
was
did
supposed
Rise
to
say?
be a revival of one of the old ninja shows.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it was supposed to be like another Ishinomori project being adapted, but whatever. Or
Um,
like the thing is like there's a rumor or something that like Ishinomori's last things were like Kuga and this other show that he wanted to make, and the ideas for that kind of turned into Hibiki. So it could have been a revival. I don't know, but that's interesting. Like the thing with Hibiki is like it's kind of super not writer, uh, but it's a really good show if you've been through some really fucking depressing writer shows and then you watch Hibiki to like build yourself back up. That's what Hibiki is good for. It's sort of like that Evangelion thing where it's like if you watch Eva normally, it's like this is kind of not super great. It's just okay, and you don't feel like watching it. But like if you're in the mindset to watch Evangelion, then it's great, right? You kind of like it's the opposite where it's like, okay, if you're super depressed, then watch Hibiki. It'll make you better. If you're kind of depressed and not, in the super great mindset, then watch Evangelion. And then once you finish Evangelion, then watch Hibiki. Basically. So it's like, oh shit, what the fuck was I watching? Like, what? Like Blade or Ryuki? I don't know, like one of the really depressing ending ones. And then you're kind of like, fuck, I am kind of burning out. Like, these are really good, but like, I can't take anymore without taking a break. So, like, if you want to break from all the depressing shit in Rider, then watch Hibiki, or at least like the first half. Because it's kind of this really like heartwarming show, but yeah, you're right. It's not much of a Rider show. Because if you watch it normally, then it kind of turns into like this like Zi-O problem of like, okay, yeah, it's happy fun times, but it's like, what the fuck are you going on about, right? Like, I kind of see why like Hibiki had this problem halfway through where they replaced the writing staff, where it's like, okay, we're paying you a lot of money. Oh, not a lot, but we're paying you money to make a writer show. What the fuck is your show about? Because like halfway through, it's about Hibiki teaching this kid life lessons, kind of, which is okay, but it's like, okay, this kid doesn't want to be a writer. We're not focusing on the other writers. He's taking up so much plot. Hibiki is about to retire. Like, what is the point of this anymore? Like, it's not bad. It's like, where's this even going? And then they have this like writer shift, and it's this like drastic change of like Inoue coming in and like resetting the plot back to what they want. I mean, like he doesn't do it the most graceful way because he's like, okay, now boom, rival character, here you go. Um, we're gonna set up this rivalry and force this kid to want to become a writer now and all this shit. And it's like, yeah, it's not the most well handled transition because it's so jarring. And it's not terribly written. It's just it's so contrasting from what came before that like if you're enjoying what came before, it kind of ruins the show. If you weren't enjoying what came before, like you're probably not going to stick around for this change. So it kind of damages the show both ways. And if you understand kind of the mentality of why they were doing it, it's still not great because it's like, okay, fine, we got the main characters on track, but then like, like some of the side characters get really bad development going forward. And the problem is like, I really like the side characters, but they basically have character assassination done to most of them, which is really sad to get the main plot. I mean, they didn't really need it to get the main plot online. It's just what the writer decided to do, so it kind of damages Hibiki. Anyway, Decade, what about you? How many shows have you seen and stuff, I guess?
All of them. All of the Heisei Rider.
Oh, impressive. Like all the way through?
Yeah.
Wow.
You have.
Um,
I want to say you have the most experience. I may have also seen all of them.
Honestly, yeah, I went pretty hard. I think in terms of Sentai, the one that I couldn't finish was Goseiger.
That one actually
But-
got. Aside from the very repetitiousness of it, with like the fucking one bad guy being in every single team, which made things very, very obvious. Ghost Rider was one of the few ones that actually handled the not having a leader the best, and the storyline wasn't too terrible either. There were questions and plot holes throughout it, but
Yeah, I think I just started watching a different, or like a current Sentai. But anyway, yeah, just final thoughts for me for this episode, because I think we've pretty much covered everything. It looks like if the episodes stay consistent like this, then Zi-O could end up getting a lot better, because this was definitely a change of pace. Even though I'm still not super in love with Sogo. You know, he's growing as a character. And Gates as well. Gates growing a pair and a brain.
For me, it was nice to see all the nostalgia. By far, my favorite bit was Waz saying "Happy Birthday," and it was nice to see, for lack of a better term, Dan fighting Dan. Basically, Gates' Gundam armor fighting
Gundam armor, yeah.
Danos. Overall, this was one of the better episodes for character and all that. The only thing it really didn't touch on was the explanation of why Sugo whooped Gates' ass last episode.
Yes.
However, I am going to offer a little theory because I doubt we will ever get an actual explanation for it. With them showing his kind of motivation of wanting to learn how to do shit the right way, it wouldn't surprise me if he's been training. I don't know exactly how he would be training because, you know, we don't ever see anything like that. But that's the only thing I can think of is he's been basically training to become a better rider. That's the only thing I can think of.
I mean, that's a very classic Showa rider thing to do, or I guess it's a very Hibiki thing also to do. The one problem is, like, Gates and Tsukiyomi freaking stalk that guy, like, 24/7. Like, how do you run off to train and these guys not notice?
Well, I mean, that could be the thing of... I mean, him and Gates have been fighting anyways. Why not get him to fight him and use it as training? Because in theory, they've been fighting pretty much non-stop since fucking Gates has shown up. So the idea of him learning through the fights would make sense. Because if you fight the same guy over and over, you're going to learn how he fights, you're going to learn how he moves. It makes him easier to read. Which,
yeah.
The only issue I have with that is they haven't shown that happen enough.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, yeah, that's a very good point. If only this damn show would show it. You know? Because that would have made perfect sense, where it's like, yeah, Sogo's decent. He's not great. It's just he figured out Gates' weakness because he's fought him so many times, you know?
And you also have the aspect of Gates is very, very one-track mind. Use the idea of, which this is what Sugo would basically be doing, using his anger and, like, rage against him.
See, here's the problem with that. Is like, if Sugo actually was that character who did that, or at least it was shown that he did, it would make his character so much more interesting. But, like, he doesn't think. He just does. Which kind of, like, I mean, he started thinking a little more this episode. That's why we kind of, like, think it's an okay episode. Right?
Right. It shows him like, not being that one track of, I'm going to be king, so, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if we had, like, a thinker Kamen Rider, that'd be so much more interesting, which would explain, like, how in the future he became king, because he just, like, outsmarted everyone. And it's not like he was the smartest guy ever. It's just, like, he's just good in... Like, here's the problem, right? The perfect version of this character would be, okay, you have Gentaro, I want to be friends with all the riders. That's his normal personality. In suit, he should be Beast, which is, you know, a pinch is a chance kind of mentality, right? And then his ability to take people's powers should be like how Oz has the ability to take people's medals, right? If you fuse those three ideas, it would kind of make the best version of Zi-O, right? But, like, this show's not doing any of that. I mean, I guess it started a little bit of showing that, like, yeah, Sogo kind of is starting to think things through better. Like, if it keeps going down that path, it'll be good. But, again, like, that's for next episode to show, because, like, it seems like we're finally getting something interesting next episode.
Right, and
right?
Well, because, and we can talk about because it is the final scene. The next episode will focus on Gaim, and Kota is in it. However, he is not Fruit Jesus now, because timeline.
Yeah, that's my other problem. It's like Wizard and Gaim and Decade and O's are like some of the strongest writers. Like, okay, I can see you taking out O's, but like Wizard and Gaim are like god level strength, right? Like, okay, Gaim's like a demigod, and Wizard is Sorcerer Supreme, right?
Right, but
So
using the whole altering timeline, Gaim wouldn't be Fruit Jesus.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm more interested about what was shown in the preview,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
because like I'm like, okay, is that the thing that leads to a Zi-O? And then like more characters showing up. I'm like, that's cool, because like that other character, dude, he seems to have gotten better after Gaim. It's kind of that Decade problem of like, yeah, in the show they were okay, but everything after the show they keep getting better as an actor.
Right.
So it's more interesting to watch them.
Um,
Yeah.
for me, with the fact that the next episode focuses on Gaim and primarily Kota, I see the opportunity for there to be that whole teach, just like with this episode, where they have that teachable stuff, because Kota would be a perfect person to do so. I just
Here's
want
the
to see.
problem.
I just want. Here's all I want for next episode beyond character development. I want Kota to make his dumb henshin faces. That's all I want.
Okay.
That was to me the best part of the start of Gaim.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, he has a pretty expressive face. What I was gonna say is like, here's the problem, right? Like his Kota would be a good guy to teach like Zi-O how not to be an asshole, right? And how to use his powers. The problem is that's all the shit that happens at the end of Gaim.
Well,
Whereas like Eiji was the perfect guy to teach Sogo in this episode, is because like he was still the same person before he became O's,
right.
right?
We
Whereas like Kota won't have his character develop, or technically he shouldn't have his character development because Gaim hasn't happened.
right, but
Right.
they're gonna have to work out something for it.
Yeah, they're gonna fudge it.
Because
Like,
like that's the thing with like Takumi and all that with the five thing is like the best thing about Takumi is there really wasn't character development for Takumi. There really wasn't. He was pretty much the same character the entire time. It was just whether or not he was willing to fight and to put his ass on the line for everybody else. That was his character development. Other than that, he was the same character throughout the entire series.
I mean, he does have some development, but yeah, you're right. He doesn't change as much. It's more like he has to learn to become more heroic.
That he just needs to accept that friends are a thing and you should want to help people in need and that whole thing. Because he spends the whole first half of the series as a very selfish asshole who wants nothing to do with any of this shit.
Well, to be fair, it's more like he's more. Yeah, you can kind of call it selfish. I was thinking more. It's like he just kind of doesn't want to get involved with people because he's so socially awkward that he's like, fuck it, I'd rather not be friends with anyone in case I get hurt, like my feelings get hurt, pretty much, and he's trying so hard to hide that.
And then you
But
also have
that's what I kind of freaking love about Faiz is like he is like the most like normal dude in a rider suit, right? Because like he doesn't like going on patrol, he doesn't like getting his ass beat. He's not super nice guy even outside a suit. Like he's a petty asshole when somebody beats him, right? Like when Kaiser shows up.
I think it would.
He doesn't try to be heroic, but he'll try to do the right thing, but he's not going to try to be heroic.
And you also have the fact of, to me, what justifies 90% of this behavior for him is the reveal you get in the last half of the series about about who Takumi is.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean that would add to it as well. So it's like he didn't need to have for lack of a better term, character development. It was more of the we're going to explain
He's
some
got to
stuff
let
so
people
you
in.
know how he is, and then just get him to let people in.
Yeah, that's true.
With Sugo is I think the thing that's killing me the most with it is the constant use of Demon King. Because I understand that's a thing in Japan thanks to Nobunaga and all that. But when you hear Demon King, your first thought is evil shithead. It's not synonymous with somebody who's good. Where in Japan it
Right.
kind of would be. Because I mean, he did
Well, it's more. It's not good. It's more like
middle ground.
the ends kind of justify the means, sort of thing.
Right.
Right.
And so I think with Sugo, with this episode, learning that it's not what I want out of this and how I can get this, him learning that that's not the way to go about it, it works, gives him a bit more depth of character, of him learning what it means to be a good king. Not a demon king, but a good king. That it's not just my wishes, it's not what I want, it's my subjects that need to come first. Which that comes with the whole him asking Dan why Dan wants to be king, and it's just no, I want to be God. Well, fuck you too then.
Yeah, I mean, like this kind of reminds me. It's like all this whole like king stuff. Like the two characters. Like okay, yeah, okay. I guess Gaim would be a good one too if they kept his development from the end of Gaim somehow. The other one would be like Kabuto, but that guy's not going to show up, most likely. The other one would be if they go to Kiva, and it's like instead of Kiva, we get like I was gonna say Dark Kiva, but a couple different characters are Dark Kiva. Like if we get Saga to show up, because like he's fun guy. Have we gotten to that point?
Negative.
Okay,
I'm
it's
still
fine.
in like the first 15 episodes.
Yeah, he'll show up pretty soon.
Like I literally just found out what the fact that the people he summons are not Fangire, but they're actually different.
Oh yeah,
They're actually different races. So
that's
that's
correct.
where I'm at.
Those guys are fucking.
Um,
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. Like there are more characters. What I'm saying is like there's another guy who has more of a king role would be a pretty good because the thing is like spoilers for Kiva, so I'm not gonna say anymore. But like, there's another character who would be better.
see, my thing is when they get to the Kiva episode for Zi-O.
Oh, you want a Toya?
Grease had goddamn well better be in this series in the episode. They didn't have him in build. He better show up in here.
Look, man, this isn't fuck that Gokaiger movie where it's like you have Gavan playing like 4 different characters, like 3 Sentai guys and himself. Oh no, 2 Sentai guys.
But like,
That was hilarious.
not so much.
Yeah, and then you have Gokai.
When I say I want Grease, I mean I want his actor. In the roles that he played for Kiva, either one of the roles.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I thought you actually meant like Grease to show up. I'm like, why? I mean, it's possible.
It would be a nice touch to kind of do the whole, hey, let's give a nod to Kiva, but also give a nod that he was Grease as well. Have him show up in the Kiva episodes as Grease for no ungodly fucking reason.
That guy has been in so much stuff. I mean, yeah, he's great. Like he started off in like another show as like a teenager in like a Sentai style show, like Grand Caesar. So it's basically Sentai except like imagine there are different teams of Sentai. And then to summon your mech, you need to find your 3 partners. So it's like each team is like a Sentai team of 3, basically.
Oh, so like Lupat.
Yeah, kinda. Except there's more than just 2 teams. There's like 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah. Getting back to final thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
we got off topic again with that. I'm hoping that the character development that they've started on Sugo and Ren and Tsukiyomi in this episode actually continue and don't turn into a giant shit show. Like, because the start of this series is starting for me having remnants of both Q Ranger and Ninninger. Only one of those ended up good. One of them turned into a giant piece of shit, which unfortunately was written by the guy who's writing this show. So I have my worries. I'm hoping that this will start the upswing of this series and not the downfall.
Yeah, I mean, this was a good episode. I think they're probably gonna have more character development, at least like Sugo, definitely Little Ren. Gates probably will have his own. Hopefully, it seems like that from the previews will continue. My problem is like Tsukiyomi already had a purpose, and then she relapsed and forgot, and now she had to be re-reminded. Like, unless like they do something, like she's supposed to be like Sugo's conscience, but one, Sugo doesn't need one, and two, like she keeps forgetting what the fuck she's doing. So it's like she's a good character. It's just like the problem is like as this show goes on, she's gonna turn into Sawa if this keeps going. Where it's like, okay, why are you still here? You know, you do nothing, right? Like you're hanging around for no reason. Like I hope that doesn't happen because like again, as we've said, like this episode has started them down a path of character development. Like hopefully it keeps going because if it doesn't, it'd be kind of really sad because like the show has potential. Like as we saw from this episode, if like the older writers show up and teach the new writer a lesson, you know, like how Ultra Mebius works, it would be great because that's all I fucking wanted, right? I don't give a shit about the power stuff, right? Just show up and teach the new kids something better. The problem is like the way the show is made, it kind of makes it hard to do that because like you're basically rewriting the old characters. I mean, not as hard as Decade, but you're kind of resetting them. So it's like it's hard to get that lesson across. But I'm like, if you're a good enough writer, you can figure it out, I guess. Um, but yeah, this was solid. Hopefully, the next one is better. Yeah, that's all I got.
Um, Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will be back tomorrow because I ended up having an emergency and couldn't stream the podcast on Tuesday. So we'll be back tomorrow for Lupat. And then we'll be back next week at our normal times, hopefully for the podcast again next week for both Lupat and Ryder on the correct days. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Yep, thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.